On today's episode, we talk about allergies, plastic water bottles, and keeping your child healthy in daycare. You don't need to be afraid. You can handle this, and here's how you do it.
The Ask Dr. Mom Show.
Welcome to our first edition of the Ask Dr. Mom Show. As we go through the next few weeks, months, years, there's going to be a lot of experiences and a lot of pieces of my life that will come out as we answer questions and talk about some of the experiences that I've had over the decades of my lifetime. So I'm not going to get into a lot of detail right now about who I am and what I've done, but just a quick overview. I have been raising children for over 40 years now. The oldest child that I gave birth to is 42 years old, and my youngest right now is 12. So I've been at this for a while. I had an active midwife practice for over 10 years. I have lectured, written books, and taught about alternative medicine for 20 plus years. So we're going to get into a lot of ideas, experiences, maybe some controversial topics. But what we want to do is get you to broaden your horizons. When I first started having babies over 40 years ago, I had been raised very conventionally. I started out raising my family very conventionally. But as the years progressed, certain things happened that caused me to step outside of the conventional box that I was used to doing everything in. And I discovered an incredible world that was all around me my entire life, and I never even realized it existed. So now, 40 plus years into this experience of raising children, I do things entirely differently than I did 40 years ago. So as we go through these episodes, as we answer your questions, those experiences will come out. I am not here to convince you that I have found the one and only true path. There is not necessarily one right way to do things. Everybody has their own experiences. Everybody has their own circumstances that they're working with. But I can share ideas and experiences that I have had that hopefully will help you on your journey and broaden your horizons enough to give you options so that you realize you don't have to stay in this little conventional box. So with that said, let's jump into this and start with our first question.
Vanessa asks, are you supposed to stay away from foods that make you sick, or do you push through so your body is not allergic to them?
Okay, we're going to jump into some deep water right off the bat here with our very first question. Vanessa is asking, should I stay away from foods that make me sick? My immediate response is yes, if it's making you sick, stay away from it. But let's go back to Vanessa's question here for a minute. She actually sent a private message with that question where she gave us a few more details. And one of the things that she is trying to figure out is what is causing her child's allergies. She mentioned that in the first year of his life, he was having allergic reactions to things like eggs and milk. So if I had someone come into my office and sit down with me and say, my less than a year old baby is having allergies to eggs, then my first question to that person would be, why in the world are you giving eggs to a child that is less than a year old? The only perfect food for a newborn infant is its mother's breast milk. Anytime we deviate from that, we're going to a lesser food quality, so to speak. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to this rule. If you have adopted a baby, if there has been some type of an illness or an accident or a problem where you can't produce milk for your baby, obviously there's exceptions. And that's a whole nother discussion that we will get into later. But assuming that you are talking about a child that you gave birth to and you are capable of making milk for this child, the child is born, it is put on breast milk. That should last for a minimum of 6 months, hopefully a year. When a new baby comes into the world, they have not only an immature immune system, but they also have an immature intestinal tract. It has a lot of tiny little holes in it. It's permeable. When a baby is born and it goes on the colostrum, which is the very first substance you make before the breast milk comes in, when it goes on the colostrum, one of the things, the jobs that the colostrum does is it helps mature the intestinal tract. In other words, it coats the intestines and it fills in all those tiny little holes so that it's not permeable anymore. If that doesn't happen, and this child is exposed to other substances that it ingests early in life, it is kind of like having leaky gut syndrome. Leaky gut is one of the things that they attribute allergies to. Because if food that is supposed to go through the intestinal tract and be eliminated leaks into the system, the body sees this as a foreign object and starts building antibodies against it, which then can cause allergies. So, the basic question is, if I give my child something that makes it sick, should I continue to give that to my child and push through it, hoping that they outgrow the allergy, or should I stay away from that food? In my opinion, if something made my child sick, I would respect what the body is trying to tell me. I would stay away from it. And I want to thank Vanessa for being the first one to jump in there and send us a question, and hope that this helps her on her journey. So, what is our next question?
Joanne asks, how important is it to drink alkalized water? I recently tested my filtered water and found out it is very acidic.
Joanne, first off, I really commend you for getting your water tested. Most people don't even think twice about what kind of water they're drinking. Alkalized water, the quick answer is there's pros and cons to it. If your water is very acidic or your diet is very acidic, then I think alkalized water is a wonderful alternative to help bring your body back into balance. Drinking highly alkalized water all the time, however, can tip the scale the other direction. So I'm going to just throw out there moderation in all things. If you are fighting some type of disease condition, or your water has been very acidic, then by all means, I would alkalize it. And you can do that simply with a slice of lemon. By putting lemon into your water, it alkalizes it. Buying a special machine so that you're drinking highly alkalized water, I would caution you against, just because, like I said, It can tip the scale in the opposite direction and bring you out of balance on this side of the scale as opposed to that side of the scale. Typically, we drink distilled water. And in just a second here, I'll explain why. I came across some research that was actually published in the New York Times in 2008. Bottled water companies are not under the same regulatory laws that our local water companies are. They tested 10 different brands of bottled water, and they found an average of 38 chemical contaminants in that bottled water. I would not recommend bottled water. My preference is to drink distilled water, and I would recommend doing it in some type of glass container where it will not leach the contaminants into the water. Okay, what's our next question?
Jamie asks, can you recommend a parasite cleanse or a book about them? There are so many. How do I choose the right one for my family?
Oh, Jamie. This is a question that we're going to go over probably many times over multiple episodes, because parasites have a much greater impact on our lives than most people ever know or understand. The quick answer to this question is, yes, I have a favorite book on this. It is called The Cure for All Cancer by Hulda Clark. Her parasite program calls for 3 different herbs: wormwood, cloves, and black walnut hulls in their green state. I think it's a really good idea once a year to do some spring cleaning with our children and flush out any parasites that they've come in contact with. If you eat meat, if you have animals, if your children play in the dirt, if they come in contact with other children, there's a pretty certain chance that they have been exposed to parasites and have them. So to do an easy parasite cleanse, Sprigs Life has a formula called Pedia Parafree. Hundreds and hundreds of families have used that and had great success in flushing out pinworms and other parasites that children might have come in contact with. So I appreciate your question. It's something that we're going to go into more depth on in other episodes. And it is something that every parent should be aware of. So thank you for sending in that question.
Imani asks, how can I build up my infant's immune system before visiting daycares? If he gets a cold, how can I help his body quickly fight it off?
Imani, this is a wonderful question, because there are a lot of children who are in daycares. And as I'm answering your question, I'm thinking ahead to further episodes when I am actually going to bring out a whiteboard, and we're going to have a little discussion on how to work with the body, which will be a much more expanded answer to your question. But for today, one of the most important things you can do to help build up your child's immune system is to make sure that they are getting a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables on a daily basis in their diet, so that they are not living on processed, fast food, junk foods, which is actually destroying their immune system and leaving them susceptible to everything they come in contact with. So the very first thing I would say is, let's look at their diet. Let's make sure they're getting lots of fresh fruits and vegetables so that we are building a strong immune system. All children are going to come in contact with colds. So when they get a cold, one of the very first things that we would use in our home is a product that is now called Immunobug. It is made from 4 herbs: peppermint, echinacea, elderflower, and yarrow. It is based on an old Indian recipe that the Native Americans used to use with their children. And so the first time we see one of our children or grandchildren with a runny nose, this is the first thing that we're going to turn to, because it helps to build the immune system, and it helps the body to eliminate the toxins that are causing the problem.